Spirits are moved with their movement. Now I would like to introduce Dr. Simran Jeet Singh, who is an award-winning educator, writer, activist, and scholar. He writes and speaks regularly on issues of diversity, inclusion, civil rights, religion, and hate and violence. Dr. Singh is a professor of religion at Trinity University and senior religion fellow for the Sikh Coalition, a civil rights organization based in New York City.
Afterwards, we will have Jim Wallace, who is the president and founder of Sojourner, a nonprofit faith-based organization, network, and movement whose mission statement calls for putting faith into action for social justice. He's a best-selling author, public theologian, national preacher, social activist, and international commentator on ethics and public life. Please put your hands together for our next speakers.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Good evening. Good evening. Today's a significant day. For those of us who are gathered here, it's a day to celebrate faith and community and connectedness. And today is also a significant day for the Sikh community. On this day, November 1st, 1984, a wave of violence swept across North India. Mobs roamed the streets looking for Sikhs to murder. Children were killed, women were raped, Sikh men were burned alive. And in this violence, this Indian state was complicit. And 34 years later, still no justice, still no peace. And as I was thinking about the intersection of these two moments of what today means for me, I realized that there was a story that I had to share with you. And that story is about a young man, 33 years old, Satpal Singh, traveling to his home in Amritsar, Punjab, November 1st, 1984. He has a young wife, 2 young children, a boy, a toddler, a young baby, less than a year old. He's on the train, traveling through North India. On this day, 34 years ago, and the passengers on the car begin hearing reports of mob violence. That there were mobs entering onto train compartments looking for Sikhs to kill. And the passengers on Satpal's car became concerned that this would happen to them. And it did. An angry mob comes onto the train, grabs a hold of Satpal Singh, beats him mercilessly, punching him, kicking him, until his body crumples to the ground. And they continue kicking him in the belly, in the back, in the head, until he's unconscious. And they take a hold of his body, they lift it up, and they throw it off the train and onto the tracks, leaving him for dead. Now, remarkably, Satpal Singh survived. But actually, that's not even the most remarkable part of his story. The most remarkable part of his story is just before the mob takes hold of him. He's sitting on the passenger car, the last moments of peace in his life, anticipating his imminent death, and he offers a prayer. He offers a prayer for his family, for his young children and his wife, who he thought he would be leaving as a widow and a single parent. And he offered a prayer for his attackers. In that moment, the men that he saw, physically saw, eye to eye, as his anticipated murderers, he offered a prayer for them. That is the most remarkable part of Satpal Singh's story, because in the moment of death, he could not even see inhumanity of those who were looking to kill him. He saw divinity within his killers. That's the most remarkable part of his story. And I tell this story because it shows us the immense power of religious conviction. The people who came to kill him were inspired by religious extremism and religious nationalism. And his moment, his reflection, his prayer for those men, that was also inspired by religious conviction. That is the beauty and the power that faith can have. And the question comes to us, how is it that we can capture what he had in that moment? How is it that we can, in the most difficult of situations, respond to hate with love? Now, before I respond to that question, I want to acknowledge that Satpal Singh is actually here with us tonight. And I'd ask for him to just stand up for a moment so we could recognize him. So I've had the privilege of asking Satpal Singh, what is it? What was it that inspired you to respond in that way? And he very simply explained to me that it goes back to the very core belief system of the Sikh worldview. The first thing we learn as Sikhs is the term ik onkar, this concept of absolute divine connectedness, that we are all interconnected. The entire world is interconnected. It's the first thing I learned as a child. It's the thing that I'm teaching my daughter, who's 2.5 years old now. It's the first concept that comes in the Sikh scripture, ik onkar. And there is a beautiful composition that I want to share with you, at least a portion of it, that captures how that concept is relevant in our current moment. It's by the poet Saint Kabir. And I'll recite it for you and then offer a translation. Avale Allah nuriyo paya kudrat ke sab bande ek nur te sab jag upjaya kaun pale ko mande. First, God, Allah, Vaheguru, first, the divine created the light, and from that light, all the people of the world. If the entire world emanates from that light, is created from that light, then how can we call anyone good or anyone bad? Loga paramana pulo pai, khalak 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 meh khalak. O people, O siblings, don't be deluded and don't ever forget. The Creator is in the creation and the creation is in the Creator. God permeates absolutely all space. The Sikh teaching is that God is present equally in each and every one of us, in all spaces, and we are called to recognize divinity in all situations. There's a tradition that we have, a memory of the 5th Sikh Guru, Guru Arjan Sahib, who, as he's being tortured just before his execution, he says, rather than complaining, he sings God's virtues, God's praises. He says, Tera kiya meetha lage. Oh God, your actions, your will, that's sweet to me. This is the power of seeing the connectedness of the world. In the most difficult of situations, the most painful of situations, the hardest things we might ever face in our lives, we could hardwire ourselves by having this worldview of connectedness to respond with love, with compassion, with grace, in the same way that Guru Arjan Sahib did as he was being tortured, in the same way that Satpal Singh did as he faced his imminent murder. So what do we need to do in this moment of division, hate, taking over our world, extremism, nationalism, provincialism? What is it that we need to do? We need to proactively distribute and share a message of connectedness, not just about the other or the neighbor. We need to change our thinking. We need to adopt a worldview where there is no other. Everything is a part of ourselves because we are all connected by divinity. This shift in our collective worldview will lead to a dramatic shift in how we connect with one another and how we live with one another, so that when push comes to shove, it's not about me and you, it's about us. That's shared divinity, that's shared humanity, that's collective dignity. And that's the world that I want to be living in, and that's the world that I want us to build together. Thank you.